Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show. And here we are again. This is Joe, and this is my good buddy Dave. What's happening, buddy?
Hey, how you doing, man?
On today's episode, we will very briefly talk about the Oscars, which was 2017. Dave has... Yeah. Dave has a couple highlights from the Emerald City Comicon in Seattle. Joe will try very hard to stop saying this time around. We'll briefly touch on some news. Are they really doing a Tron reboot? I guess so. But after we quickly get through all of that, we're going to talk about what we want to talk about. Logan.
Squee. Oh, that was the least manly squee I could possibly pull out.
Sure was.
Many a panties are soaking wet right now because of that squee.
Well. Alright, so let's get a move on. Let's talk about the Oscars. Apparently I goofed up last week, but apparently so was the Academy.
Specifically,
so I don't feel so bad.
Specifically PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Wow. You think they're going to get hired back?
Well, they fired the two people that screwed it up.
Is that right?
Well, because I think the rule is... I read like a full in-depth article about it. The rule is that the two idiots... And I'm sorry, they're idiots. Because, they were tweeting like pictures of them with stars and shit like that. So that was their... that was the reason why they were there. They could care about that. But anyway, they have the winners memorized. So that if there's a mistake, they're supposed to go out and correct it. Mm-hmm. And... The general rule is that if there is a mistake, you need to get out there before the false winner makes it to the stage. Like, literally, he should have been like, shit, and out there and said, wait, hold on a second, before the producers for La La Land got up there. And they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't. The reason he got fired was not just because of the mistake, because mistakes happen. It's because he didn't do his frickin' job and made asses out of the frickin' La La Land producers.
Oof, yeah. That was pretty bad. That was pretty horrible. I think even Steve Harvey, tweeted right after that saying, thank you.
I imagine he did.
That was painful to watch. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that, again, like you said, mistakes happen, but yeah, those guys really didn't do themselves any favors that night.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah, but hey, like I said, and I was wrong. It wasn't La La Land, it was something else, but... Like I said, they got it wrong too, so who cares?
Well, Moonlight is now on my queue. I guess I'm going to have to watch it.
Yeah, same here. So, moving on. Emerald City Comicon. And I know, folks, I got to tell you, I've been leaning on Dave all week long. Dude, tell us some stuff about it. And he's like, there's nothing to tell. There's nothing to have. But I bugged him to say something about it. All right. I saw some cool pictures, so I want to hear about it.
All right. Well, the gist of Emerald City Comicon, my favorite part of going to Comic-Con is... There is a ton of comic books to buy, to look at. You find a lot of independent guys there and everything. My personal favorite part is going to Artist Alley. And in Artist Alley are, like luminaries in the business. Scott Snyder, whose work on Batman in the last couple of years has just been phenomenal. Fabienne Nicosia and Rob Liefeld were there, and they are the guys that created Deadpool.
Nice.
Mike Mignola was there, and he is, of course, the creator of Hellboy. And that was really my favorite thing. I just kind of went around. I didn't get autographs or anything. I just, either got a high five or basically told him I love you. Didn't say anything to Rob Liefeld because I don't really particularly care for Rob Liefeld. And
okay.
Here, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, and Joe, I want you to look up the words Liefeld, Captain America. When you see the artwork that comes up, you'll understand why I don't like him.
Okay. All right. I'll definitely do that. Because now you got me curious.
Oh, it's fucking awful.
And Liam got some pretty cool pictures I saw.
Yes, my son. The other thing about Comic-Cons is that they have celebrities there. And my son got to get a picture with Jeremy Renner, Hawkeye,
cool.
With Michael Rooker, who is Merle from The Walking Dead, Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, JFK. I mean, JFK alone puts him in easy 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon territory.
Right.
And his favorite, and if you could see the picture, you'd understand why, Evangeline Lilly of Lost and Ant-Man fame.
Mm-hmm. Hello.
She's tiny.
Well, hey, she's playing the Wasp. She should be.
I mean, seriously, Ty, like in the picture, she's kind of got her arms around Liam and she's leaned over. She did not have to bend over that far.
Wow, that's funny.
But I was thankful she did.
Yeah, it's a very nice picture.
And but that's what it really is. And there's wonderful cosplay and everything like that. My son went as the Flash.
Yeah, that was cool.
I didn't dress this year because the costume that I want to do. The cosplay that I want to do is it's expensive, but it's going to be beautiful once I get it. So I'm hoping for next Comicon that I'll have it going on. And
you're going all out.
Oh yeah, well I told you what I'm going to be, right?
You did, and I don't want to spoil any surprises if it's a surprise. But yeah, I'm saying to myself, is that an expensive costume? But I guess if you're doing it right, it is.
If you're going to do it, like I could go cheap and it would look awful. I want it to be one of the things I like is when people are wearing something obscure. I like calling them by that character name to let them know I know who you are.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So I want people to walk around and say, "Oh shit, it's the Man in Black."
Very cool.
And I've got the Ed Harris head for that, so it's probably
you
a good choice. You
can pull it off.
Yeah,
you can definitely pull it off. Yeah,
easily. But yeah, that was Comic-Con. It's always fun. It's amazing, such amazing energy. If you've never gone to a comic book convention, even if you're not a huge comic book fan, you should go to at least one once, just to it's just fun to people watch in many respects.
Nice.
And always go on Saturday, because that's when everybody is cosplayed. Always on the Saturday is when everybody cosplays.
What was your favorite part?
I would have to say when Liam got the picture, Liam is my son, when he got the picture with Evangeline Lilly, because that boy was smitten.
Hey, it's the big master control program everybody's been talking about.
Kevin Flynn, computer genius. Taken prisoner and held captive within the digital world of the computer itself.
Okay, so is it true? Say it ain't so. They're going to try to reboot Tron?
Why don't they just do Tron Part 3, please? They left it open. They have a very good place where they can go. I liked Tron Legacy. Was it the greatest movie?
Why reboot it? I mean, they didn't have to reboot it last time. They just sort of picked up where they left off.
Yep.
Had all new graphics and all new stuff they can do, so why just do another one?
I don't know. Maybe they don't trust Kaczynski, who was the director of Tron Legacy. I honestly, from what I hear, the reason why there's no new Tron movie is because of Tomorrowland.
What? Okay, and I didn't see Tomorrowland, so tell me.
First of all, Tomorrowland is not bad. It's not the greatest movie on the planet, but it's also not quite the water world that a lot of people make it out to be. But it was a very expensive movie. It was heavily hyped and promoted, and it did bupkis at the box office, and it basically scared Disney off of doing anything that's not safe.
It's interesting too, because I remember I saw the commercial for it, and I thought, oh, it looked pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Then, kind of before I knew it, it sort of came and went, and I didn't even know it was out. So I don't know what happened there.
I say check it out. It's like I said, it's not as terrible as people make it out to be. It's actually quite imaginative and fun, I thought.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no, the idea of a Tron reboot as opposed to a sequel is just terrible. And here's the thing, people, could you stop casting Jared Leto? Could you just stop? All right, the guy. I don't think the guy is a terrible actor, but I get the feeling like every time he gets a part, his ego just kind of like swells his head a little bit, and he just thinks he's more that than he really is. I was one of the few people that when he was announced as the Joker, it's like, oh, Joker, yeah, he could probably pull off the Joker pretty well. And then when he actually did the part, I was like, what the hell? Why would you go in that direction? And what's with the freaking damaged on the forehead? It is what it is. I think that under the right conditions he can be a good actor, but I don't want a Tron reboot. I'm seriously guys. Mm-hmm. I'd rather it just die. Somebody needs to just get the screenplay for Tron 3, make it into a comic book, and that'll be it. I can live with that.
We got ourselves an X-Men fan. Maybe a quarter of it happened, and not like this. In the real world, people die.
Logan.
I don't want to talk about it.
Logan. Just stop.
All right, Logan.
Dude, what a devastating movie. What a fucking devastating movie. And I don't mean because it was bad. I mean, it was just so... Okay, folks, let's just start right from here. If you've made it this far into the podcast and you're listening to this review, spoilers from this point forward, you're on your own. I loved it. I think it's the best X-Men movie that they've done yet.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I think it's it's incredibly visceral. I've heard that word be thrown around a lot, and I have to agree with it. It's a gut punch on multiple levels. It's a phenomenal film, and frankly, and I use the word film on purpose because I think, like, I heard somebody say this, and I have to agree. Up until now, they've been making movies, and this time they decided to do a film based on Wolverine. And from the first 10 minutes in, you realize this is something different. This is something else, and I can really let go and enjoy this because, you know, again, they're not gonna. There was a real environment with real people in it, and frankly, it's almost. I almost find this very hard to call this a superhero film because it's kind of. I mean, I would call it it's about mutants far more than it's about anything resembling a superhero, and it's about people with abilities, but it's kind of so far removed from a superhero film, I think, that it's almost apples and oranges, that I almost feel like, is it even fair to compare it to the other X-Men films, X-Men or Wolverine films? But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of chomping at the bit to get into spoilers. I'll just say that it's, I mean, I would call it a 9 out of 10. The things I didn't like about it were very small, tiny. It's a phenomenal movie, and you know, I would urge anybody who hasn't seen it yet to just see it as soon as you can.
Agreed. Please make sure this movie makes money.
Yeah, I think not only will it make money though, I wonder will it. I'm wondering this could be an Oscar contender.
Shit, dude, it's very.
I mean,
possible.
it's got the acting was phenomenal. The performances are amazing.
All of the acting was phenomenal.
All of it, yeah. I mean, I think frankly, if it doesn't, I think this is very Oscar worthy on, you know, at least for performances or, I mean, you know, if not for motion picture, I would say for performances regardless. And yeah, I think if it doesn't, it's only because it's got the stigma of being a superhero film.
This is a superhero remake of Shane, which they made very, very obvious.
Yeah.
But, you know, with Wolverine as Shane. Except with the exception of the, you know, vague Shane ending, come back, Shane, come back, and he kind of slumps on the horse, and you wonder, is he dead or is he just tired? What is it?
Yeah.
You know, no, this is pretty obvious how it ends. I was engaged from the first moment, and the funny part is it's a road picture. There's not a lot that really happens in this, but it's such an amazing story, and. Just so you know, it's partially based on the Old Man Logan comic and the origin of X-23, which was Laura, the little girl. And it's not really all that related to the comic. It has elements from the comics, but it set it in a real world with the rules that were basically set up by the X-Men. And
agreed, yeah.
Just, oh my God, everything was just right about it. You know, the portrayals, the idea of, you know, here it is, it's 2029. This is a Wolverine whose body is killing him. This is Professor Xavier, you know, the smartest, one of the smartest and most powerful psychics in the world. He has a degenerative brain disease. The worst frickin' thing. That's like, oh, look, here is a nuclear silo with a leak in it.
Yeah, right.
Which they demonstrated. Oh God, that scene in the casino where they're demonstrating it. Oh
yeah, wow.
How do you pull off something? I mean, basically, there they are. Everybody is frozen, and all you hear is this agonizing sound, and nobody's able to move except for Wolverine. And it is the most heart-wrenching couple of minutes just to get there. Although it was kind of cool. I'm sorry. I laughed out loud when it happened. He's trying to get to the door where Charles is. There's the four guys from Alkali, you know, frozen. And the guy's eyes are looking at Wolverine like, oh shit. And sure enough, snicked to the head.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell you, we should probably kind of try to go through this kind of chronologically, because there's so many things I want to kind of touch on, but yeah, it really was, and this is it's kind of a complaint, kind of a compliment. It really was a downer of a movie in a lot of ways. I mean, this was, and I do sort of say to myself, like, is that from the beginning? I did have a concern. It's funny. We mentioned something last week or the week before about how Hollywood tends to learn the wrong lessons. And one of the things I remember after Deadpool coming out was I was afraid now Hollywood's going to kind of see this and just run with the idea of just doing a ton of R-rated superhero movies. And then the next thing I know, Wolverine 3 is going to be R-rated. And I had a concern early on, is this going to get too dark? Like, are they really going to kind of go crazy now? Now, look, Wolverine is a character that needs an R-rated film. Mm-hmm. There's no two ways about it. However, after the silliness, which was, Wolverine Origins, and then the decent The Wolverine, which followed, I said to myself, like, does it make sense now for this character that they've already invested several films into? I mean, I'm talking from the very first X-Men till now. So now years. Suddenly have him, yeah, right? Almost like a crazy amount of years doing in this part. But again, we've had so many X-Men films and so many appearances of Wolverine so far. The character's pretty much ingrained. So I was worried that they were going to go too far with the R. Too much blood, too much F-bombs, or whatever. I think, and as I watched it, and again, I'm incredibly satisfied with this film. But I have to say, as a standalone film, I think it's phenomenal. In the kind of X-Men universe that they've built, it does sort of stick out a little bit now. And I kind of wonder, like, is that the way to go? And I do sort of say to myself, like, do I need to see Charles Xavier dropping F-bombs all over the place now? And do I need, like, I mean, again, like, we haven't seen that until now, and now all of a sudden we're getting an overload of it. And I'm like, that might be my only complaint, is that they could have toned it back just a tiny little bit to try to sort of match the tone. Not match it, because again, they got it right in this film. But again, in the big scheme of things, was it right to go that far? My thought is, like, if they pulled it back just a little bit, I probably would have been. It could have moved it to a 10 for me from a 9. But again, I'm sure as hell not complaining about a 9.
I could see your concerns, but in many ways, they actually did give you an idea of what a despondent Charles Xavier would be like in Days of Future Past, when he's sitting in the school all alone with nobody but Beast.
Right.
And to the point that Charles basically had to reach through time and say, "Please, you need to hope again." And
right.
This is as despondent as he gets. I mean, they talk about the Westchester incident. You imagine that's got to be weighing heavily on his mind. The fact that basically he's got to, stay medicated, or his mind just, loses it over things. It's a harsh reality to that possible future, and Logan being the only one strong enough to be able to deal with it, that's been demonstrated on many occasions. So it made sense in that context that he was the caregiver, and Logan's condition also is another factor to make these are people. You have to think of it not just as, they just did this for the sake of, getting that R rating and stuff like that. Because trust me, they earned the R rating every time his claws went through somebody's skull. They didn't need the F-bombs. They didn't need the F-bombs to do that. This was a demonstration of two people who have just lost everything. They have nothing. There's no anything left within them, so they don't have any. They don't have any reason to even try to have a sense of decorum. Now, think about it this way. Remember when they were at the dinner table with that family? Okay, look at how Charles was at the dinner table. And even at the end of it, when he said, "This has been the best night of my life in a long time." For that moment, all that cursing and stuff and all that bitterness was gone. And there was Charles Xavier again. That tiny moment where he started to hope. And I like that. And I like that. I thought it was a great little moment and piece of growth for the character. And God damn it, Stewart acted the hell out of that. Every single scene with that man. If you were to tell me Oscar-nominated Patrick Stewart for Professor X, I'd be like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, oh hell yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and listen, I'm on board with you 100%. I just kind of felt like it did get... There were just kind of slight moments where it kind of just, went R for the sake of being R. Like the girl flashing her boobs in the back of the car. I mean, it was funny, but again, I'm saying to myself, okay, like now we have boobs in an X-Men movie just because it's R, and it really didn't do anything for the movie. And again, I'm hardly a prude. I'm not saying that, but like we got boobs, we got F-bombs, and again, we went from like this is what I'm talking about. Like I remember when I first saw the trailer for Origins, all I saw was the trailer, and I knew this was not going to work because I remember all I remember was like. It was like, how many tricks can Wolverine do with his claws that are not impaling somebody? You know what I mean? It was like every little dumb when he's stopping the bike, he put the claws down to open all the locks. He puts the claws down. He's doing the thing on the. Oh my god! I mean, there was just some awful nonsense. So I knew in that film, it was going to be terrible. But again, now I feel like now they're kind of going hog wild and like even the scene you mentioned when he goes into the room when the guys are frozen. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a part of me that was like, well, that's not very sportsmanlike. he just walks up to the guy, puts his fist up to his head, and just snick. And I was like, that was kind of cold, I thought. But hell, again, this is not a Superman movie; it's a Wolverine movie, So
exactly,
yeah.
But in a weird way. But if you think about it, it was. I've been thinking about it a lot actually. All the F-bombs and the boobs and stuff like that. That was just within the first 15 minutes, and I think in a weird way it was an attempt to set a tone and really distance itself from the happy peppy all that stuff and hope and love and peace and happiness and fighting against evil, blah blah blah. I think that was the movie's way of trying to say, this is not, set your expectations now, this is not what you think this is. But trust us. Yeah. But trust us. That's because if you notice, as the movie progressed, the F-bombs and the S-bombs, they just started dwindling away. And it just became actual dialogue. Every once in a while, one would get thrown in there, but nowhere near. It felt like, I agree with you, at first it felt like they're just cursing for the sake of cursing within the first 15 minutes. But I think that was a deliberate choice. I felt it was a deliberate choice to condition the audience to, okay, this isn't the Charles and this isn't the Logan They're the same people, but it's not. They're not quite the same as they were. And as the movie progressed, you find out why.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent point. I agree with you too. It really did set the tone early on, so that later, when things happen, you're not going, oh wow, this. You're right. It kind of got the shock over with, so you can just sort of forget that and just get into the story. I mean, that's a very good point. Like I said, I do sort of feel like it went bleaker and darker. One of the problems I had with it, and again, it not a problem story wise, and I kind of felt like the family getting murdered was probably a little much. I kind of felt like we could have reined it in there. We could have had him just save the day just a tiny little bit sooner and leave this family kind of, just little rough around the edges, but living or something. I don't know. I kind of felt like that was much. Again, it was almost like I don't want this to go Tarantino either, where just nobody is safe. I mean, I do sort of want I'd like to see somebody get rescued at the end of the day. I like that the girl makes it out. I like it that the kids make it out. And yes, I did have a Thunderdome flash when he wakes up with the kids all around. But I mean, but again, I like I said, it could have just sort of toned it back just a tiny little bit for me. And again, this I don't even want to spend too much time on it because I don't want to seem like I'm nitpicking or criticizing. Because like I said, this movie's a 9. It's a 9, and that tiny little bit, probably that was a little distracting for me. But otherwise, I thought it was spectacular. In fact, I mean, like just to get back to what I do like, I mean, even the scene in the beginning when he's sleeping in the car and the guy starts stealing the wheels or whatever, the rims.
Yeah,
and he gets out. Oh my god! I mean, I'll say this: they did nail Wolverine in this movie. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, this was Wolverine when he gets out and he's just like shaking his head at these guys, like, guys, you're gonna strip the heads doing that. Can you those are expensive. Could you not, please, whatever. And then when the guy pulls the gun out and shoots him, and then he gets up and like just starts like that was awesome. Yep. He's like just tore these guys up and was like, and again he's like, just guys, could just stop. You know, I think that was awesome. That was such a great opening scene.
Yep. Also set the tone.
Agreed.
With regards to the family, I kind of disagree because there's a line. The whole point was like, they needed that because this was basically the Last Supper. That was
okay.
that was basically the Last Supper. That was the Last Supper for Wolverine and Charles together. Okay, mm-hmm. And the family. What happens with the family is part of a line that he says later, which I'll get to in a second. And he didn't get away completely scot-free either from that situation. Even after everything was said and done, the father is sitting there with a gun to Wolverine, and Wolverine's all like, "You know what? I deserve it. Give it."
I agree. That was a pretty intense moment because he's like, you're right. He's got this look on his face saying, like, "Guy, I wouldn't blame you if you did."
Yeah, and just amazing acting by Jackman in that point. But then later on, but this is the thing, that scene makes the line that he says later to Laura about how anybody I care about doesn't end up very well.
No, that's true. You're right. That is true.
And which gave her follow-up line even more powerful when she said, "Then I have nothing to worry about."
Right.
And that was, oh God, what a gut punch that was. I feel like I can't think of something random in this movie that happened. You know, even the little things. I thought like having Caliban, for example, was fan service, but then Caliban turns out to be like a key part of the entire thing. I thought even having, I honestly, if there's one thing I felt was, you know, like just as a comic book fan, I thought the one thing that didn't get enough due, it was Essex, frankly. And he was well acted, don't get me wrong, the guy was freaking awesome, but this is Nathaniel Essex. This is Mr. Sinister in the comics.
Right.
Okay? That's who that guy was. And I kind of feel like he didn't get his due, although he got what he was due. That was freaking awesome at just how it happened, too.
Yeah. Well, actually, and it was interesting, too, because at the end of Apocalypse, or towards the end of Apocalypse, they do, or actually this might have been the after credits. They do that whole thing. Yeah, but wasn't it? It was a different guy, though, wasn't it?
It was a different guy. It wasn't the same guy, but the suitcase, when they closed the suitcase with Wolverine's blood in it, it said Essex Corporation.
Yeah. All right. Well, and you know what? Maybe it makes sense it's a different guy because this is how many years later that this all came to fruition. So if it was the same guy, it might have been a little.
Well, it couldn't be the same guy because he even said, "Oh, that was my father," and Wolverine's like, "I think I might have killed him," and he was like, "Yeah, I think he kind of did."
Logan, what did you do?
Charles, the world is not the same as it was. Mutants. They're gone now.
I hurt myself today.
All right, now here's a question, because here's something that, again, I'm on the fence about. There were a lot of unanswered questions in the film.
Okay.
And I don't know. On one hand, I like it, and on one hand, I'm not sure if I like it. So I'm going to throw it at you, and you tell me what you think.
Okay, hit me.
Well, basically, I mean, we don't find out what happened in Westchester. We get an idea, but we don't know who, how exactly. We don't, what's left of the X-Men. I assume nobody, but it didn't say. I thought he said this many people died, which still would leave others. So it's like, again, who is alive, who's not, and they don't talk about that at all. Now, on one hand, I say, well, okay, if they get all into the backstory, then that's just going to distract from the story at hand. On the other hand, they talked about it enough. It's like, some films, like, they'll leave things kind of vague. We don't have to know everything about everything going off in the peripherals. On the other hand, there was enough reference to it in this film that I was sort of expecting it to be answered. and it wasn't, and I that kind of left me with a mixed feeling.
I take the Westchester incident. I'm assuming that it's when he basically bomb blasted his own school. Mm-hmm. And Essex at one point makes mention that basically from the ashes of that he got a lot of genetic material from the dead bodies and from the people that were still alive. My sense of it is that the X-Men all became part of Essex' experiment.
Yeah, possibly. Okay, but there was even a reference, like when they talked about when there was like a newsreel on the radio about what happened in the casino, and it said like leaving people injured. I don't know if they mentioned people dying.
7 people died.
And they said this was very similar to an incident that happened in Westchester, which made me assume, okay, so in Westchester, this probably the first time he had a seizure was up at Westchester, and it probably lasted long enough that a lot of the X-Men got killed who didn't have the kind of immunities that Wolverine does.
Right.
But again, I'm saying to myself, but which ones? I kind of would like to know. And again, they reference it enough that you get an idea of what happened, but it's leaving me wanting to know what happened, and I really didn't get it. So I should that bother me or not?
It's a good nitpick. I kind of took it as a, you know what, it is a story element. It's a MacGuffin. It's a MacGuffin. Plain and simple.
That's a pretty big MacGuffin, though.
It's a damn big MacGuffin, but the whole point of it, I think, was just supposed to be, this was the start of Charles's instability and how Charles came to be as he was. I know it goes back to one of my pet peeves with movies that tell but don't show. So I'm not going to argue with you on that. I agree. I think even the tiniest bit of a flashback of the event happening just would have been good. But I also think that in the context of how they were telling the story, I think it would have detracted. So I don't know how you could have done it any differently that wouldn't have detracted from the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
It's a weakness. It is a weakness. I agree with you there.
Well, it's not even that I'm calling. I wouldn't even call it a weakness because you're right. I mean, again, to veer off into all that sort of backstory again, then you get into just the plot exposition, and they would just talk about it more. A flashback, it could have worked, but again, that's not this story. So I can't get angry with them about that. But again, I do sort of feel like that is kind of a big deal. I mean, if you're talking about wiping out the X-Men, that's a story in itself. And I kind of say to myself, that's a lot to just sort of throw out and say, oh yeah, this happened and now here we are. And I'm torn. Like I said, I'm torn on it. I don't know if I wouldn't hold it against the film.
Yeah.
But would it have made it better? Would it have been more satisfying had we known exactly what had went on and seen maybe a little bit? Hard to say. I don't know.
No.
And we're down.
The girl who plays Laura, holy
oh my
cow.
God, she was amazing.
Phenomenal. Like, she was unbelievable. And honestly, she had me cracking up. Like, when she started, I loved how she started. I love how her character progresses. And I loved how just little by little we get to know she knows how to, she does speak. And then, I mean, the part when they're in the car together, and she finally starts to speak, and then she just starts just kind of barking at him, barking the names, and it's all in Spanish. So he's like, I don't know. I mean, I was cracking up, and Mary and I were both cracking up. I mean, that was so well done. And then little by little, like you realize she does know a little English too, or whatever, or she's just a quick learner. I'm not sure which, but and I like the idea. I mean, I love the whole thing about Eden. I love the idea that and it's funny, when we saw the comics in the trailer, I didn't, just figured it was going to be kind of a little just throwaway line, just for fan service. Oh, look at this, like, oh, look, they make comics about the X-Men in this world or whatever. And, you didn't think anything was going to come of it. But then when you see this whole Eden thing, when he realizes this was for the comic, oh, no, this is all bullshit, whatever. So I thought that was really well done. And then when you kind of get there and you realize, because of the comic, they basically created Eden, and I was like, Wow, okay. I mean, that was pretty sharp. I don't know. And again, they don't really say, was this something before this, or did the kids just read it in the comic and all just go and, just to meet up there?
I'll give you one other thing to think about. You're wondering where the X-Men are? Maybe they're in Canada. Maybe this is like maybe this is like a mutant underground railroad to get people out of the United States into Canada.
Well, it definitely seemed that way.
Especially considering they were communicating with somebody in Canada who was ready to take these kids in.
Yeah.
So if there is a sequel to come from this, it would probably be about these new mutants. And frankly, I wouldn't mind seeing a movie with Laura. I don't know if the girl can hold her own, or if they need to wait a couple of years for her to grow up or something like that. But I wouldn't mind it. Mm-hmm. I thought she did. I thought she was a tremendous character. I thought she was well done, and I think that that they set the seeds that if they decide, we want to continue the story of this universe, you've got characters that you can do it with. Yeah, you've got new mutants you can do it with.
Yeah, they do. And incidentally, I did hear that a lot of the other young mutants were either they were obviously a lot of their powers were taken right from some of the powers that we've seen in other X-Men, which was clever. And I know some of the names they threw out were actually some of the new mutants or the young mutants or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that was pretty clever. So yeah, they definitely have some room to take that if they want to.
Yeah. Maybe there's another story to tell that would explain the Westchester thing and explain what happened to the other X-Men. I don't know. I mean, would I want to see a series of movies that show the final days of each X-Men?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it actually, I did say to myself too. I was thinking Days of Future Past. They just went to all the trouble to bring back Jean Grey, Cyclops, Professor X, and they only got a couple extra years. Now they're dead again already.
Well, this takes place in the far future, so we don't have to worry about it right now.
Yeah.
Also, actually, they've said in interviews that this is an alternate universe story, so it's not actually.
Well, actually, because I heard differently. I heard this does take place in the existing time frame. I mean, they referenced the first.
It's parallel. It's a parallel story to that time frame universe. So the things that they talk about are things that quote unquote happened, but this is just skewed a little bit differently.
Meaning what though?
Basically, okay. The theory about alternate universes, right?
Okay.
The idea behind alternate universes is that in every universe, in every other universe, there is a path that branches off and makes that universe different. Mm-hmm. You could technically say that this universe and the current X-Men universe were all going in the same pattern, but something happened in this universe that veered off, say, to the left, whereas the current X-Men universe veered off to the right. So this universe is basically the dystopian bad news version, and the X-Men universe is still going off into whatever direction they decide to go off in. That's if you go with the theory about that. Whether it's true or not, I mean, my God, it's not like the series has been overly concerned with continuity. It's not like it's really going to matter.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my thing, too, because, I was going to say, the X-Men franchise has been around so long.
17 years.
Things are getting complicated now. You got, different timelines and universes and time travel and stuff. See, well, and actually what's interesting, too, is that, again, this really wouldn't take away from, because this happens in the future, there's nothing saying they couldn't keep doing other X-Men movies.
No, not at all.
That existed, in today's time frame. And incidentally, I did hear something about Patrick Stewart. Apparently, originally, he said something like, Jackman says this is his last one. I'm not saying this is my last one. I'll go back and do more. But apparently, I think he's since changed his tune after he saw the movie and said, you know what? That's as good a send-off as we're going to get.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you got, I'll tell you this, too. It's not often that you get to, I don't even know if I can even think of any examples where a character, especially a comic book character, gets to sort of go out on his own, on a high note, the way that they planned for him to go out, as opposed to just, the last movie stunk, I guess we're not going to do another one. Usually it's just they Christopher Reeve or who usually the series just kind of runs out of steam and they just say, okay, we're done with that. But Hugh Jackman and the Wolverine character has been so successful that he's been able to take it through to completion and go out the way they want it to. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I have to give him that. It's a rare thing. I don't think there is another example of anything like that ever in cinematic history. Except for like movies that are just self-contained in its own. A large franchise of this nature has never had anything like this. They never had a character have closure because they always have to keep it open for the sequel. And I guess Jackman I can imagine the looks on the faces of the Fox executives when James Mangold, who wrote and directed this movie, when he walked into the offices and sat down with his pitch for this and said, ba 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 ba, ba ba ba. And I can imagine the looks on their faces just like pale and like,
yeah.
Are you trying to destroy the franchise?
Right.
And
it's fun. Yeah.
And I have to think that it was just Jackman who basically went in there and was like, no, Mike, no, it's going to be all right. It's going to be really good. You see, yeah. Because we could do it like really in the future. I have no idea what kind of accent I'm doing, but it's terrible, I tell you. We're going to do it in the future, and in this way, you can fill it in the back. This is like just the end of a story. See?
Yeah. Yeah, very true. In fact, I don't know if I heard this as this could have just been one of the reviews that I heard, but somebody was saying that they went in thinking that the studio was going to turn around and say, oh, no, we can't do this, or they're going to monkey or do whatever. Apparently not. They just said, go for it, just do it, whatever. And they were able to do it. Maybe somebody's finally, again, Hollywood learns bad lessons. Well, maybe they learned a good lesson in Deadpool and just said, you know what, maybe we should just stay out of it and let them do what they want to do, because apparently they're better at this than we are. Yeah,
because that's what's killing, as far as I'm concerned, that's what's killing DC right now.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, we know for a fact. I really, really hope that like 10 years from now, somebody comes up with the David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. I'd really like to see what it is he really intended.
Yeah, you're a little more hopeful than me. I know you feel like there's a good movie in there someplace, and I agree with you to an extent. But I don't. I even in a perfect world, I don't know if it would have been realized. But
no, it probably wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have been.
And incidentally, but I also sort of felt like the original X-Men Origins Wolverine was probably also done by kind of just a poor committee. Because and again, either they handed it off to somebody who just didn't like or get comics and said, "Here, make a movie," and he went, "Oh yeah, okay, whatever." Because I mean, that's a movie that again, every bad choice they could have made was made in that film. And I say that to me is probably a studio monkeying with that one.
Yeah, you can usually tell. You can usually tell when it's a studio interference because it's the push button thing. Or I'm sorry, not the push button, the checkbox thing. It's like it's got to have this and it's got to have that. It's got to have that bonding scene in the bar. It's got to have that moment where he says his name. Or oh look, the adamantium bullet, which in this movie blew off somebody's head, but in the other movie, no, I just made a clean hole in his head and then it got cured and he had amnesia. Nice job.
Yeah, right.
Great.
Yeah. Incidentally, too, I was curious about the idea that Wolverine was getting poisoned by the adamantium.
That's actually a comic story.
Is that right?
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I liked the logic of it. I thought it made perfect sense. I mean, and again, I just wondered, like, there was a part of me, again, that was sort of torn. I'm saying to myself, okay, we've seen this guy since the 1800s, and he seems fine right up until Days of Future Past, and then all of a sudden today, he's old and the adamantium is killing him slowly because he's losing his powers. And I'm saying to myself, I mean, I thought the idea was that Wolverine was, for all practical purposes, immortal because of his healing factor, but was he always destined to lose it at some point?
The problem is, the way that the comic explained it was that his healing factor is extremely high, but just like anything else, after it's done doing its job, if you do enough damage, sustained damage to Wolverine over a long period of time, you could kill him because his healing factor may not be able to pull it back. The problem is he's frickin' Wolverine. You can't do sustained damage to him for a long enough period to actually have that happen. But the adamantium was basically the catalyst of his doom because it was explained, at least in the comic, it was explained that his body was constantly fighting it. Yeah. He was constantly trying to seep into his system, and his body was constantly fighting it, and it basically burned out his healing factor after so many years. Okay. We're talking from the 70s to 2029 in this one.
Right.
We're talking 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 2020. We're talking like 50 years. Yeah, that's a reasonable thing. That's a reasonable thing, I think, to happen.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, it's again, and you're right. In the big scheme of things, the adamantium skeleton was pretty new. I mean, it's like you said, it's been around since the 70s, I guess, and he's been around since the 1800s. So okay, yeah.
She's like you, very much like you.
I am not whatever it is you think I am.
When evil Wolverine showed up, I was kind of mixed on him. I was like, really? Do we need another element to throw into the mix here? And but I mean, it was pretty cool. When he first showed up, though, it was funny when the camera first hit him because he had the short haircut or whatever.
Uh-huh.
For a couple seconds, I thought that was Liev Schreiber. I really did. I thought. I mean, actually, when you saw the haircut, they actually looked kind of similar, and I kind of went. I had a flash. I'm like, did they pull him into this? Did they bring back Sabretooth for this?
That would have been kind of funny.
I mean, honestly, I actually thought that would have been kind of cool because I don't remember what happened to him at the end of the first one, but I kind of thought that would have been mildly clever if they did bring him back for this, and it could have either been him or a clone of him. But yeah, I mean, honestly, for a split second, I was like, wow, I really thought that was him. But then when I realized it was Wolverine, I was like, okay. Yeah, I mean, I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, if you're gonna clone everybody, I guess. And in fact, truthfully, if you think about it, they've opened the doors to a lot of sequels with this cloning idea. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was all right. I mean, but then again, is the older beat up Logan gonna be able to handle young Logan? I don't know. But I mean, that was all right.
Just so we know, I kept referring to the main bad guy as Nathaniel Essex. His name is actually Dr. Rice. I kind of feel like that's a missed opportunity by this movie. I hadn't realized. I couldn't hear very well. When he said, my name is Dr. Rice, it sounded like he said, oh, Essex, yeah! And I just kind of filled it in my head. But I'm looking up on IMDb because I was like, what character was that guy? It was Pierce. The one-hand man, his name is Pierce. I don't know who that character is, but I assume he's part of the Seekers. Yeah, Dr. Rice. I don't even know who the hell that is.
That's funny.
I feel very, very, hold on a second. Let's Dr. Rice, Marvel Comics. And there's no listing for him. Got it. So he's basically nobody.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, incidentally, too, the other thing, if I had any kind of a I wish they did this kind of moment, was when he does take this. Well, first of all, when he took the big green serum at the end, all I kept thinking in my head was. But here's the thing: when he actually did take it, honestly, I really wanted just a little more of Wolverine as, the younger, healed up, ready to go Wolverine, like top of his game. And I kind of thought they blew through that a little too quick. I'm like, all right, this is kind of sort of what we've been waiting for. Let's have a little more Wolverine, at the real Wolverine and healing
But that was supposed to be his last hurrah.
I know, yeah, but I mean, they just a little more of that, before he turns back into David Banner, I want to see the real Wolverine,
God, that movie messed with my head.
Yeah, it's it's easily the best Wolverine film for sure. Like I said, and I think it's well up there. I mean, I think the First Class and Days of Future Past especially were pretty phenomenal. And again, is this a better film than that? Yeah, but it's kind of not fair. Again, I feel like this to me is like No Country for Old Men. This is it's like a whole different genre to sort of even compare it to. And again, and it's also, you have to wonder, is this going to be good for superhero films going forward? I still go back to the X-Men Origins Wolverine. I say, who were they making this for? You know what I mean? They sure weren't making it for Wolverine fans, and I can't even imagine. Again, it was just so silly and so childish. See, but that's one of the things I loved about this one is in the first 10 minutes you say, oh my God, they're making a film. They're making a grown-up movie for grown-ups, and it's not even, again, not the F-bombs and the boobs and the whatever. It's just the feel of the film just felt like a grown-up movie. Like they're finally going to give us something that does not insult my intelligence and think that I'm 14 years old.
This is what life looks like. People who love each other. A home. You should take a moment. Feel it. You still have time.
All in all, this is a mind-boggling. I'll put it this way: I'll be very surprised. It would have to be a hell of a year for movies for this one to not end up on my top 10 at the end of the year.
It's already my number one movie of 2017.
All right, amigo. Well, again, this was a very good podcast. Again, we've been talking about this for 2 weeks now, this movie, so I'm excited we finally got to see it, and it met and surpassed expectations as far as I'm concerned, and I'm looking forward to whatever's coming up next.
See you next week. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.